Hey, welcome back. Coming to you live, as always, Monday to Friday on Liquid Lunch TV from the high atop the financial capital of the world, right across from the New York Stock Exchange, from the Question Tequila Studios, where we bring it to you every single day, straight up. We bring on real guests who know where the rubber meets the road, not these talking heads that you see on these left-wing maniac channels, real people who've been in the trenches. And today, joining us, Frank Gangemi. Frank, thanks for taking some time to come on Liquid Lunch with us. And, of course, as always, Frank Morano joins us.
Morano, good to see you as well.
Frank, you have a colorful history.
To say the least.
These days, you're in the business of online legal sports gambling. But just so our audience understands that you really do know where the bodies are buried and where the rubber meets the road, you're a federal convicted felon.
Yes, Brooklyn, not federally convicted, Brooklyn District Attorney.
Okay.
Unlike John Dean. John Dean was a federal.
Give us a little background on why you had to go to be incarcerated.
John, years ago, early 90s, I was a real young guy, probably had more chutzpah than brains, and I got a golden opportunity to represent a lot of guys in the Fulton Fish Market when Rudy Giuliani just became mayor. He was effectuating legislation to regulate.
And you were an attorney at the time.
And I was an attorney at the time, and I had a lot of fun and made a lot of money, met a lot of people. I saved most of the companies there, and then I started to do my own thing from that point. I started doing business.
My own thing is like
I opened up a sanitation company. I opened up a business development company, and I started believing my own hype. And I used my license the wrong way. Lawyers can't do things like that, so I parlayed all my excesses into a 5-year prison sentence.
And maybe in some of these instances, these companies were really fronts for other clients to funnel money through, and you could always have privileged conversations.
You know what?
In some instances,
if we were talking in the hypothetical,
yes,
maybe.
Exactly, hypothetically, of course. And you served your debt to society.
That's right.
And now you're doing great things to promote something that should have been legal a long time ago.
Absolutely.
Gambling. Tell us a little bit how you parlayed your felonious background into fantasy.
The felonious background didn't help me with this. My legal background did. I kind of knew several years ago, piped into some guys in New Jersey that Governor Christie was really pushing this legislation. And everybody that's involved in sports gambling now, just to mention, has him to thank for where it's going.
That's right.
So, with no doubt. I knew the law was going to pass. I started to create gambling content. I formed a production company, partnered up with some real good guys, and this will be the third-headed, the final prong of a three-prong approach to sports gambling. You have the sports books. You have a lot of networks coming on board, like the Action Networks being created.
Right.
Barstool's going into the sports world, the gambling world. And now you're going to need gambling content.
What about Liquid Lunch?
What about it? Perfect.
Maybe we should have a weekly segment to tell our viewers what's happening.
I think you should. It is a mainstream industry. It's no longer taboo. You have everybody that's in the media business, predominantly the sports media business, getting into sports gambling. But they don't understand the intricacies of it. They're doing it like almost like a Sports Center type scenario.
Got it.
Or they're doing it the old way with the guys from back in the day, the old sports bookmaker, the guy that never won a bet, that cookie cutter nonsense.
Taking phone calls still.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're doing more.
We don't want to do that.
No, we want to be entertaining, informative, and responsible. That's the end game.
Frank, and you have you've been a gambler yourself from time to time, right?
Yes, I have. For part of my excesses back in the day when I took my hit was gambling excessively, to use that word maybe a little bit too much. But of course, if you gamble intelligently and you treat it like a recreation as opposed to a job, it's a lot of fun, and you don't get hurt. And that's where we're going to be going with our media.
I used to be degenerate when I was a younger man and bet on anything I possibly could and continue to parlay and parlay. And then I realized that it's almost worse than drugs.
Oh, it is.
Especially in the old days, because you can call up on credit and put in a $500 bet. You could really get in trouble.
That's right.
And it's like it hits the same receptors. The opiate
those
receptors,
the endorphins go flying over.
You want the endorphins, right?
No doubt.
And what I do is when I go to Atlantic City, I enjoy a night at Atlantic City with Frank sometimes. I set a number in my head that it is leisurely. You know what I mean? If I lose X dollars, that's part of the night, and I'm happy with it. I had fun, enjoyed time with my friends, but I'm not sitting there miserable that I lost $2,000 driving home You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
like the
like
guys that
that
get in the car.
Yeah.
Well, so
They just don't have gas money.
let me ask you this, Frank. Now that New York appears to follow New Jersey's lead, and I think Delaware and some other states,
Right.
and be on the verge within the next couple of days of legalizing sports gambling. One, New Jersey, they viewed sports gambling as a shot in the arm for them in terms of the state's casino industry and in terms of state tax dollars and revenue. Now that New York is going to be legalizing the same thing, is that going to cut into New Jersey's share of this?
Well, not yet. And let's understand something for a moment. It's not that sports gambling has been legalized. It's that the ban has been lifted. So every state is free to do what it wants. So you have this progression of states coming into the into the space. And the reason why you don't have it across the country is because it's not legal. It's just not illegal. So every state is kind of limping in. The problem with the New York legislation that you're referring to, it's only legalizing sports gambling in 4 casinos upstate, which would be great for New York. It's good for New York. Would be great for New York if it also included some form of an online or mobile betting. So you really have to walk into one of these casinos to place a bet. So New Jersey, right now, as far as being infiltrated by New York, is safe. If and when the day comes that New York does enact legislation to give a mobile presence or an online presence, then of course New Jersey's got a lot to worry about.
2 things I want to bring up to you. I live in Staten Island, New York. Okay, on Sunday at like 12:30, I drive over the outer bridge to the nearest gas station and pull in the parking lot so I can go on
That's right.
my app, because now I'm in Jersey and it's geo-fenced, so
right.
you can't get on it until you hit the other side. I pull into the parking lot and there's a good dozen cars with New York plates with guys sitting in there putting in their bets. So they're paying a $15 tax, because the toll is $15.
Right.
They're paying a $15 tax to drive to New Jersey to put it in. Maybe we should put a little parlor right there where guys can go in, maybe get a drink, a piece of sandwich, put something in online.
It's happening all the way up New York. They're doing it. They're going over to
You
Tap
know what I
and
mean?
Z.
Like
They go over to GW.
like a little
Yeah.
online gambling
Good idea,
social
yeah.
club.
No doubt.
You know,
No
anyone
doubt.
can come,
No doubt.
men, women,
No
rainbow
doubt.
flag.
With our luck, we'll
everything.
do it, and then they'll enact the legislation.
Yeah, you're right.
Frank,
yeah.
real quick, we got to get your take because with the in the news, with John Dean being in the news, who, as I mentioned, is a disbarred former attorney, someone that's been in prison. We needed one of those to comment on his own type of person. Give me your take, and I know your dad, who was a former politician here in New York, knew President Nixon fairly well. When your dad ran for Congress, Nixon backed him very strongly, had him over at the White House. What's your take on, one, bringing back John Dean, and 2, the Mueller investigation and where it's been going, even after the report's been issued?
Jerry Nadler, who's running the Judiciary Committee, reminds me of Roger Debris.
From
No,
the
he
producers?
From the
He
producers.
reminds you of the guy from Bruce's.
Because what he's doing is...
Wait, can I just show you
that's
one
right, he
thing?
does.
You want to see who he reminds me of? Seriously? Take a look. We have it, Rosie?
I feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
You're doing him an injustice.
I use that often because I think
I love that,
that's
by the way.
what an
I don't know if he
awful,
has
awful
Roger
person.
Debris' flair for musical
Yeah,
theater.
exactly.
Well, Roger Debris plays closed on the first day of rehearsal. His hearing should have closed already. He's running political theater. We know that.
Yep.
There's no sizzle, no steak. They're going to keep doing this until the new election. They think it somehow, some way is going to damage Donald Trump. It is not. It's going to be fodder for the other side, which is our side. And I got to tell you, they want to keep wheeling in guys. Like John Dean has nothing to add. Nothing to add. What can he possibly add to something that's happening now that he was front and center 50 years ago? Nothing. Got nothing to add.
We're always going to add all the expert commentary we can, bring you real experts, and if you want to know about John Dean being a bot, we bring you one. And he gives you real insightful understanding of what's really happening. Today we talked about CBD, and we talked about tequila, and we're going to need some gambling on the show also. I want to thank Frank and
My
Gangemi for
pleasure.
joining us.